follow Jesus, boom, I'm gone. Is this really the kind of message, kind of vision that you would buy into that quickly? Let me paraphrase it a different way. Look at this slide right here. What if I said this to you? Blessed are, right? Do we have another slide there? I think I have one. No? Is it hidden text? Okay. Blessed are, look at that. Blessed are the poor. That's you. You're poor. The sad. That's you. You're sad. Meek. Right? Or you could say weak. Righteous, merciful, pure, peaceful, persecuted, insulted people. I mean, doesn't that just sound like a movement that you want to be a part of? Woohoo! Sign me right up, right? It's a countercultural concept to me, really. But when you look at Matthew chapter 5, this, I believe, was one of the sermons that shaped the church. Now, let me do something real quickly for you, okay? So maybe this makes better sense. When the Gospel of Matthew is written, it's probably 70 years, 60 to 70 years after this was spoken. It's probably in the height of Paul's ministry to the early church. Right? The early church of Asia Minor. The 7 churches. Paul's missionary journeys. Maybe he had a copy of it with him, I don't know. But can you imagine Paul walking into one of the early churches where the Roman church now has decided, or the Roman government now has decided that Christians are bad. In fact, let's fast forward a little further in time where Nero has decided to burn the city down because he didn't like the way Rome was going. And so he said, hey, you know what I'll do? I'll burn the city down, and then I'm going to blame it on who? The Christians, right? And that'll cause us all to have this big movement to absolutely go after the Christians. Could you imagine if you were a part of the congregation of a small church in Rome when that happened and people were trying to kill you, that if you were identified as a Christian, they were basically going to take you and throw you into the Colosseum and watch some big lion eat you up. Could you imagine if I came to you and said, oh, by the way, let me give you a vision of our movement, and this is what I gave you? You'd probably be thinking, dude, you're crazy. But now, fast forward to Rome today. The church did catch this vision. In the midst of their pain and their suffering and the difficult day, they caught the vision. And if you go visit Rome today, you know what you find? Crosses everywhere. The Roman church was born there. In fact, you'll actually, in the middle of the town, you'll find Peter's church there. I mean, can you imagine if you were able to sit this little group of people down and say, hey, look what's going to happen because you understood the vision and the mission of what Jesus was trying to get us to buy into way back on that Sermon on the Mount next to the Sea of Galilee. You remember that? They could see it. What about us right here at University Baptist? Is that the name of our church here? University Baptist. What would happen if we at University Baptist Church got this vision and really bought into it? That all these people out there, the poor, the sick, the sad, the meek, all these people, right? So this was so important that Jesus says, I don't want you guys to miss this. He said, I don't want you to miss this. So he's going to give us 2 word pictures, okay? 2 word pictures to understand how this is going to happen. So in Matthew, are you with me in Matthew? Am I following my notes, by the way? I got excited there. In Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 13, Jesus says, I'm going to give you 2 word pictures so that you understand how this is going to be done, okay? And he uses 2 very simple concepts that these people understood, whether they're educated or uneducated. They understand these very 2 important word pictures. And the first is what? He says, you are salt. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled on by men. Now, when Jesus says, you're the salt of the earth, what was he saying to them? Salt has two basic uses during the day of Jesus' day, okay? During the day of Jesus. Back then, there was two main purposes for salt. It was a huge product that could be sold. And the first thing that they used it for was as a preservative, okay? Now, what does a preservative do? Well, if you go to the store today and you buy anything that has a package around it, you turn around and you look at the ingredients, you're going to have words in there that it looks like it's coming out of some algebra class, okay? Like, what do these words mean to me? Those are preservatives. My wife calls them poisons, okay? But actually, this salt is a natural preservative, all right? Its main purpose in the day of Jesus was to preserve food, mainly meats. Okay, they kept meats whole. It is a substance, according to this, I'm going to teach you a little science here today, okay? It was a substance added to food to prevent decomposition due to chemical change or bacterial action. Okay? Now think about this for a minute. He's saying to you and I, we are the preservatives for our world. If you take the church out, our world is going to decompose quickly. It's going to rot. I had a freezer in my garage. I lost power to my garage. I didn't know it for a few days. And I went out and opened my freezer. It did not smell very good. Okay? In fact, it made me gag. That's what's happening in the world when the church, when you and I don't understand the importance of being the salt. We have to preserve the truth. And the truth is, Jesus came for the poor and for the sick and for the hopeless and for the lost. That truth must be preserved. And that is our number one job as the church, is to preserve the message of Jesus Christ. You take Jesus out of this world, we're lost. We're in trouble. The second thing that you find salt was used commonly in the day of Jesus was for flavor, right? I love salt. In fact, my wife doesn't let me use salt very much because I will salt everything more than I should because it makes things taste so good. You can't have a good baked potato without at least a teaspoon of salt. You know what I'm talking about, brother? I mean, we live in Boise, Idaho, which is a potato capital, right? So you understand the importance of some good salt. I mean, I could eat just a raw potato with a little bit of salt on it. I don't need the butter and the sour cream. Just give me some salt. You know what I'm talking about? Some good, you could fry those things. You could boil it. You just put a little salt on there. It tastes like heaven. See, what does the salt do to your taste buds? Well, it brings flavors out. It makes things that are sweet taste even sweeter. Now, I see people put a little bit of salt on their watermelon, and that seems like it's unethical to me. But I tried it once, and whoo, I was surprised. It made the watermelon taste even sweeter, which is confusing to me because salt by itself does not taste sweet. And then it makes things that are bitter taste a little unbitter. Is that the right word? Less bitter. Is that okay? It just makes everything taste better. You can't have a potato chip without some salt. You can't have a good corn on the cob without some salt. I mean, think about it. Salt, just give me a pack of salt. I could live in the woods. Okay? So what am I saying to you? The church today, we are the flavor of Jesus. The message of Jesus, the ministry of Jesus makes things that are sweet even sweeter. It makes bitter less bitter. Right? That's our calling. We are called. And he says in the text in Matthew right there, he says, what happens if the salt loses its saltiness? We're no good for anything. Just throw us out and let us be trampled. Don't you dare throw salt out, by the way. Okay? We are the salt and the light. So he says, word picture number 2. You are the flavor of life. That is our ministry. That is our message. Jesus is giving us a powerful, powerful message to deliver to a world that is hurting today. Then he goes into the second word picture. Look what he says here. Verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. You are light. You are a city on a hill. Is that what it says? You are the light of the world. A city cannot be hidden. That's an interesting concept, light and city. In the day of Jesus, or even earlier back, during the early times, cities were strategically is that fair? Cities were strategically built, okay, on strategically identified places, particularly the high ground. Now, I'm a military guy. If you know anything about the military, if you're going to defend something, you want to defend what? The high ground, right? I've also traveled at night, okay? And as a chaplain, we get lost real easy. But if I can see the light of where I'm supposed to be going, makes things a lot easier, right? There's pretty good canyon between where I'm going, but I can see where I need to be, right? When he's talking about this concept about a city on a hill, he's saying that, hey, this city was strategically placed right there on that hill so that people can see where it's at. Now, let me encourage you with this concept. You are a city on a hill. And what I mean by that is you have been strategically placed by God where you are, planted where you are for His purpose. Now, I didn't quite get this concept. And a lot of my life, I just kind of bounced around, just kind of like, hey, I don't even know what my purpose is. And I just, go wherever I want to go and do whatever I want to do. And I never really thought that, hey, could God use Rob Morris for anything other than watching football and eating potato chips, right? Yes, there is something more important. I love what Henry Blackaby says in his Experiencing God curriculum, where he says to us, you need to understand that as a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ, God is always at work in your life. Nothing is by accident. Nothing is accidentally done. God is orchestrating everything, moving parts all the time around you, and you don't even know it. But lo and behold, all of a sudden that moment hits, that divine appointment, and boom, there you are. For me, it was about 4 years ago. God reminded me of this. We had a soldier who wound up dying, and I worked with the family. And it was several months after we'd done everything, and I was kind of sitting in my office, and I was in one of those funks where you thought, what am I really doing with my life? I mean, I was working out here for the military, and I really got this place where what am I doing with my life? Am I even making a difference, God? Am I even making a difference? And I lost sight of this fact that I was a city strategically placed to bring hope, right, to people through Jesus Christ. I lost sight of that. And this family wrote me this really nice card. And at the very end it says, we are so glad that God placed you where you are, because it meant a world to us that there was somebody here in our life to guide us back to where we needed to be in our relationship with God. Now, it's not verbatim, but that's kind of the gist of what she said. I don't ever want to lose sight of that again. And I hope you don't lose sight, whether you're a teacher or a homemaker or a student, right? You might be thinking, I came to Boise, Idaho from wherever in some crazy little town in the country to go to college here, and I'm lost on campus, and I really don't know what I'm doing. Or maybe you moved here for a job, and then you got laid off from that job, or you met somebody online, and you thought, I'll move to Idaho. I don't know why you're here today or how you got to Boise, Idaho, but it wasn't by accident. You may not see what God has done or what He is about to do or how He's doing it, but you are strategically placed to be the light of the world.